welcome everybody here. So for those of you who don't know, if you've been here for first time, we do this every quarter, obviously. We do try to have a really good turnout indoors, and this has probably been one of the best ones that have been here in person. So we do appreciate everybody showing up. We have about, I would say about 90-ish or so probably online, and that will be online. So we appreciate all of those who are making it here. Before I get started, though, I do want to just go over a little bit of kind of some housekeeping items.
That's why you do that.
Oh, okay, excellent. Good, thank you. So if you're going to ask a question, obviously, if you're in the room, just raise your hand, and we will definitely call on you. If you are attending online, you can go to the Q&A tab, which is located on the top banner of your webinar, and then you can write your question off on the right-hand side. But you can also raise your hand. I do want to kind of stress, we do like to hear from you. So if you've got kind of a long, lengthy question, or maybe has a couple of parts to it or something, raise your hand. We'd like to call on you and have you unmute yourself and ask your question, so we can kind of engage you that way. The AI use policy, I just want to let you know that our agency, TxGIO does not allow any AI applications such as note takers, AI assistants, or chatbots. Please do refrain from that. If you start one up, we're going to have to either turn it off or ask you to turn it off. Time and breaks. So the meeting is actually scheduled for 2 hours. If you're in the room, the bathrooms are just around the corner, off to the left, right, and then to the left. And obviously, if you're at home, you know where your own bathroom is. So, if you're attending here in person, make sure if you haven't already signed in or at least registered, please do that before you leave on your way out. And also, too, just in place of the AI chatbot, we are recording this meeting, and we'd like to put it out on YouTube once it's done. It takes a couple of weeks to get it all prepared, but you will be able to watch it if you've missed anything. So did I miss anything I think you got it right. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started. So we're in the beautiful Barbara Jordan building here at central, basically the Capitol area. If you haven't been here, it's a very, very nice place, very easy to get to, and there's plenty of parking. So next time, try to consider, if you can, to be in person. We'd love to meet you. So here's how the agenda lays out. I'm going to just give a couple of opening remarks. We're going to turn it over to talk about our TxGIO events that are coming up. Also to give you some of our StratMap updates. And then also too, we got a special presentation on geospatial suitability analysis for data center placement. So that will be good. That's about a 30-minute-ish, closer to 40 minutes actually. Then open discussion, I think, is something that's very important. Some of y'all have submitted questions in advance. I'm calling for those. But this isn't just one of those types of meetings where we just talk at you. What we really want to do is hear back from you. That's how we know what it is that y'all are looking for, or what it is that you need. You may have positions that are posting. You may be new here. You just want to introduce yourself. We would love to get to know you that way as well. So, and then at the very end, for 5 minutes, we'll just do some closing remarks and some announcements that we got coming on. So, if anybody have any questions before we get started? All right, let me jump straight into it. First of all, I wanted to say Happy Earth Day to everybody. This was, I think, a coincidence. I don't think we planned this, but did everybody kind of watch the Artemis stuff? Who watched the Artemis, right? I mean, how could you not watch that if you're in our field? Some of the most amazing things I've witnessed, at least in the pictures, and they keep coming out. I said they took over about 10,000 different photos that are going to kind of make their way out. So be looking for those. But here's just a few that they released recently, and I mean, just absolutely fascinating to watch. So anyway, Happy Earth Day, all. I want to talk a little bit about our county boundary assessment. I had mentioned this at, I think, last meeting. It has been obviously something we've been looking into for quite a while, to do an assessment of county boundaries to determine their accuracy and their usage. It's pretty clear to me that there are issues. Obviously, there are some issues, but we don't quite know to what level these issues exist and how counties are actually dealing with them on their own. So I proposed to my agency that we do an assessment of those county boundaries. And they've asked me to, basically do a little bit of a write-up for them so they can understand exactly what that looks like and what that means. So I'm hoping that I can get some approval by summertime, and then we can get something going on that. And again, I just want to stress this is the first of this will just be an assessment of the county boundaries. We don't plan to do anything with them. We just kind of want to know what condition they're in and what issues people are actually having. So again, stay in tune with us, and we'll be providing some more updates to that. Our GIO report is making some good progress. The initial write-up is already been drafted with some more to come, but we have submitted it into our government relations group for review, just to make sure we're on the right page and that they are agreeing with our layout and that sort of stuff. Some of you guys I have sent information to get information back from you. And many of y'all have sent it back. Some of y'all have not, and others you haven't received anything from me just yet. So once I get a kind of a thumbs up on the layout and everything's okay, I will definitely be sending you guys a draft of the report along with the write-up of your agency for your review. So again, just stay tuned for that. This is due to the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the House on December 1st of this year. So it sounds like we have a lot of time, but the way the red tape works, we don't have a lot of time. So stay tuned. We'll keep you updated on that. My next thing I want to talk a little bit, it's kind of a twofold thing. The school safety initiative y'all heard me talk about. Kind of want to reiterate, the school safety initiative is something that's kind of a personal thing for me. It's not necessarily a mandate that I have in my position, but a lot of us that are in this field can kind of look at something and say where geospatial could be a really good solution to something. And so that, from my standpoint, is working with the students of the high schools and the subsequent, middle schools and elementary schools to be mapped by high school students themselves as the labor, and getting them familiar with GIS tools and basically the GIS sciences altogether. And so that's kind of been our idea. And during the NSGIC mid-year meeting, I was asked to go along with a group of folks that went to the Capitol to kind of drive the point home a little bit about the importance of school safety, but also the importance of good, solid mapping, business practices, best business practices that you can have in place, and make sure they're done correctly, right? So I was able to join a group of people. The two presidents of NSGIC that I used to be on the leadership role there, had asked me to attend, along with Brooke Shannons from ESRI and some other folks that I had just met while we were there. It was an amazing thing because we got to talk to three different offices while we were there. Brian Mass' office, Andrew Garbarino, I think is his name, and Tom Emer. We talked to their offices and we just explained how important this was to make sure that we get this right. I was there as a NSGIC representative. I wasn't representing TxGIO or the Water Board. So I want to be very clear about that. Anyway, it went extremely well. But what was really fascinating is I met a woman there. Her name was Lori Aladoff, and she was kind of in the room with us and was talking, and she was handing out some pamphlets and stuff about Alyssa's Act. If you haven't heard of that, I'll explain that a little bit more. But she gave us, little bands to wear and whatever. But after about an hour of talking to her, I realized that she was the mother of Alyssa, who was unfortunately a victim at Parkland High School. And to listen to her and her strong ability to just, take what this imaginable pain that you have and turn it into action was unbelievable. So I got to sit with her for about an hour, and she told me all about it. And let me tell you what, it was hard to not have a tissue next to you at that point. But she talked so matter of fact about how important school safety was. here she is holding up a picture of Alyssa. Her daughter was 14 years old and was an amazing athlete in school and had everything going for her. So, you know, what a horrible thing. But she started Alyssa, basically the Alyssa's Act, which has actually been signed by the governor, and also created something called Make Our Schools Safe Again, an organization. Her and her husband have been fighting tirelessly to make sure that schools have what they need to be safe. Nobody should be able to send their kids off. When you send your kids off to school, you're expecting to see them back. Here's a couple of really good photos where she's been championing Alyssa's Act. Governor Abbott signed that act, so we're one of 12 states that have that act implemented now. So very happy about that. Alyssa's Law is in 12 states. You can see there in blue. And also too, the gray areas are where it is in progress. So it's making some major waves in, you know, getting to the point where this is now no longer just kind of a side topic. This is front and center now. I really talked about what we were trying to do in Texas with GIS and school safety. And she listened to me, and I told her about how we wanted to engage the students. And she said, you know what? We're doing exactly the same thing. We have something called makeourschoolsafe.org. They call it MOS Students. And so she sent me to the website. I started to research it, and I started to realize how much we have an overlap in what we are trying to do and what she's already doing. And so where we thought we would have to come in cold, we can basically just point to this and say, this is already happening. So you can see they have this amazing website that they're on. It talks about Alyssa's Act, but more than that, it talks about the students and how this can be done. Though there's a MOS Club. I actually really do love this. The MOS Club, the B is actually the number 8. That is her jersey number that she wore in soccer. So I thought that was just an amazing way to pay tribute. And here's the students. There's, I think, 14 different states that have a current MOS program at their schools. And so we're not going to try to reinvent any wheels or anything. I asked her, can I use your model as we continue to write up our ideas for school safety and how geospatial can be a point? And she said, absolutely. And then it dawned on me that as I researched further, I realized that there isn't a MOS club in Texas yet. So that has to be changed. And I think, you know, I would definitely like to work on that. So more to come. That school safety report is right after the GIO report. I kind of get that behind me a little bit, and we're going to go all out on the school safety to get something written up so I can take over to others and have them look at it and see if we can't get some traction on it. And I think that is all I have. So before I turn it over, does anybody have any questions for me? All right. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it over to Laura. Are you next? I think you are.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Sepulveda. I'm a manager at TxGIO, and our team helps plan the annual Texas GIS Forum every year. So that's what I'm going to share. I have really exciting updates about our events this year. So the theme for the forum this year is Geospatial Takes the Stage. And we're interpreting this a lot of ways. You know, it's a lot of times geospatial is nested in different departments. It might be within IT, it might be within planning, it might be within transportation departments. But this is a chance for geospatial to really shine and take the stage and be the center stage, right, at the event. This is happening October 19th through 23rd here in Austin, Texas at the Commons Conference Center, also known as the J.J. Pickle Conference Center. And registration is open. So you can register now all the way up until the event when it starts on October 19th. If you register before September 15th, you will get the best rate, which is listed up here, $400 for government. And then you can see how the rates increase, you know, between September 15th through October 16th, we have one increase, and then late after October 16th through the event itself is the late registration. We do have student and public rates. So the student rates are a flat rate of $75. It's open to any current students in high school, college, wherever you are. You just need to show proof that you're a student to get that rate. And then public rate is available for people who are maybe retired or no longer working in the industry, but still a part of our community. Or another example would be if you are like in between jobs right now and you want to use this as a networking event. So to qualify for that rate, though, you will need to send a justification email to our event management company and explain why you think you qualify for that public rate. The other thing about registration this year is we have event shirts, which we haven't done before. Well, we did it one time before and we still see everybody wearing those shirts. So we thought we'd do it again and we're really excited about them. This is a mock-up of what they will look like. So when you're registering for the event, it is an option to add on to your registration a shirt. Not required though. Okay, and as of today, workshops, the pre-conference workshops, which happen the Monday and Tuesday of the event, have been launched on the registration website. So when you register to attend, you may also sign up for a workshop on the Monday or Tuesday ahead of. These are sold separately from the event. So registering for the forum doesn't mean you will get a workshop, but you can register for a workshop and attend both, or you can just register for a workshop. You're not required to attend the forum if you don't want to. So Monday, we will have accessibility essentials for GIS, intro to ArcGIS Arcade, custom visualizations, automating ArcGIS Pro tasks with AI-generated Python code, ArcGIS instant apps, easily create interactive map apps, introduction to FME, which is going to be a 2-day workshop. So the people who register for that will attend that class all day Monday and all day Tuesday. And then on Tuesday, we'll have advanced dashboards in ArcGIS Online, unlocking insights, exploring GeoAI and ArcGIS. 2030 is closer than you think, using comparative analytics and mapping tools to improve LUCA readiness. And then that continuation of the FME class from the day before. So some of these are half-day classes, some are full day, and then we have the one that is 2 days. The pricing structure behind these are the half-day classes are 150, the full-day classes are 300, and then the 2-day class is 600. All right, and then call for presentations is open right now through May 1st, which is next Friday. So if you're planning to submit a presentation, please do so as soon as you can before next Friday. And if you know somebody who you want to encourage to submit a presentation, because I think we all know somebody who is doing awesome work and maybe hasn't thought to themselves, hey, I'll present this work, please nudge them, please give them the go ahead to submit or encourage them like, hey, I'd like to see you take the stage at the forum. They may not have thought about it already, and we're a friendly crowd and we like to see everybody represented at the event. Similar but different, map submissions are open all the way through October 1st. So if you're working on an application or a map that you'd like to feature, you can do so all the way up until the 1st. If you want to think about it and then create a map or app for this event, we would love to see that as well. And then I'm really excited to announce one of our keynote speakers. We're going to have Pete Kelsey there on Thursday as our closing keynote. He's the founder and owner of Vecto Labs. His bio will be on our website, so you can read it there. But we have seen him present at other conferences, particularly about his work mapping Alcatraz using LiDAR technology, which is pretty amazing. He's also done some other reality capture work for National Geographic, the History Channel, which is pretty impressive. So please go check him out and get excited. And then lastly, TxGIO is going to be at these upcoming events. We will be on Friday this week at the ACC GIS Career Fair. So if you're going to be there, stop by and say hi. We will also be at the SCOG conference, May 5th through 8th in Corpus Christi. Please come see us at our booth. And then at the Esri User Conference in July. All I have. If anybody has any questions about the conference, I would love to answer them. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Lauren to talk about StratMap. Oh, and here's the QR code. Sorry. to our mailing list. This is where we send out updates about the events, the conference, this event. You can sign up. A lot of you probably already have, and that's how we will notify you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. Great to see some new faces. My name is Lauren Kirk. I'm the imagery specialist at TxGIO. I just have a brief update this time around, but an exciting one. So TxGIO is planning to revive our Texas orthoimagery program. This is a program that we've had in place since the mid-1990s, where we acquire statewide orthoimagery, high-resolution orthoimagery for Texas. This is really exciting development for us. It's been about 7-8 years since we've had a top program active. Let's see, and we are planning to initiate a statewide 6-inch resolution acquisition this upcoming winter season, 2026 through 2027. And the Texas Orthoimagery Program will work in conjunction with our Texas Imagery Service, which you've probably heard me talk about at many of these events, which is the Texas Imagery Service is a subscription-based imagery service program for all of our state agency partners and their contractors. So basically what will happen in this new model is we will fly imagery. That imagery will be available through tile download on our data hub, and then it will also be fed through the Texas Imagery Service as WMS links for agencies to digest in their maps, apps, and whatever else they need. So we're really excited about these changes. It's all still kind of nebulous at the moment. We're waiting to release some statements of work for these, so stay tuned for new imagery coming. And that really is my update. So I'll pass it over to
Lauren, I have a question.
Yes.
This trace from Esri. I was just wondering why there was a gap, or why y'all decided to do it again.
Yeah, so really why we decided to do it again is we were getting a lot of really positive feedback from the public, folks who use our data hub, and they wanted more frequent imagery, statewide imagery acquisitions in addition to the NAEP, which does happen typically during the summer leaf on period. So we wanted to provide an alternative leaf off winter statewide acquisition. The imagery service is, a licensed product that is really only available to state agencies. So folks in academia, folks in the public sector can't necessarily access that. So we wanted to really effort to release quality orthoimagery to everyone. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, cool.
Hi, everyone. I'm Clayton Rainier. I'm the bathymetry specialist at TxGIO. I just have a few quick updates to share. After our previous 2025 bathy collection, we've now collected about 40% of our TIF priority areas that are listed out here on the slide. After our upcoming acquisition this year for East Bay and Sabine Lake, which I have more on the next slide, we will have collected a majority of the bays along the coast. So because of that, we're going to start exploring some riverine options in the future. We'll be coordinating with the Army Corps and some local river authorities. So just keep an eye out for those kind of collections in the future. So for this year, we are planning to collect East Bay and Sabine Lake. We had that project kick off earlier this month. So data acquisition will begin this summer, and we anticipate that data being available in 2027. So these are the two AOIs that we'll be collecting. And then just a really quick update on our EDH initiatives. Last community meeting, I mentioned that we submitted a proposal to USGS for a project to collect elevation-derived hydrography. That project was recommended for funding. So the past couple of months, we've just been working through all the paperwork to get that project going. So we hope to see some progress on that in the next few months or so. So that's really all that I have for updates. Are there any questions? Thank you. I'm going to pass it off to Joey.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I am Joey Thomas. I am the Strategic Mapping Program Manager for TxGIO. filling in today for Ellen, who is currently away on maternity leave. Just to give you a couple updates. So we did have 2 recent LiDAR acquisitions that were made public and available for free download through the Data Hub. This past quarter, they would be the Little Middles and Lower Brazos Basin, which happens to be the largest LiDAR acquisition the StratMap program has ever done in the past. And that data is all available. And it also includes 2D building footprints and 3D building models as well. We're likely just going to be moving forward with 2D buildings in the future. But if you want to check out some 3D building models, those are available on that data set as well. We also just published the Ralph Hall Lake pre-impoundment data. So we surveyed that. We surveyed Ralph Hall in December of this past year, prior to them beginning impoundment earlier this year. And so that'll be a valuable data set for the state so they can take a look at how that reservoir evolves over the next several years after it gets impounded. So we also initiated 2 new LiDAR acquisitions this past winter, 2 relatively large acquisitions, holding with our new policy of pursuing HUC-6 acquisitions. We were able to collect, I believe it was 7 HUC-6s this past winter in 2 separate projects, being the South Central Texas basins, which covers, I believe, the Guadalupe and the San Antonio River portions. And then the Sabine, Neches, and Lower Trinity basins out in East Texas. And both of those acquisitions will also have 2D buildings as a final deliverable for those. And we're happy to report that both of those collections were successfully collected this past leaf-off season. So stay tuned for those, but we anticipate they'll probably be available in spring to summer of next year, especially since we're collecting these larger areas. Are typical around from acquisition to release is kind of spreading out a little more. So, we're hoping spring to summer for both of those collections. And as always, we're continuing to plan to collect LiDAR this upcoming winter. As you can see, there are large portions of the state that are still relatively quite old. We tend to prioritize the older areas first, as well as if we have any partnerships in these areas. So of course, if you see any of these areas that are red or orange or anything like that, and you're a potential partner in one of these HUC basins, please let us know. We're always looking for partners. If you want to just get a buy up to a higher point density or anything like that, it's a great way to save cost and produce better data for the public. I'm also filling in for Sean today. He wasn't able to make it to the meeting. But just to give you some updates on land parcels. So land parcel collection has been coming along successfully this year. We partnered with BIS again, who manages a large portion of the state's parcel data. We are currently at about 173 counties that have been ingested into our process. And we anticipate that we'll be able to match the same number of counties we collected last year, which was 253. Unfortunately, I think, is it Howard County that doesn't have any? Yeah, they still don't have any data yet, so maybe one day. Similar address point collection has been coming along really well. We're at 228 out of 254 counties for the state. And so we anticipate that we'll be able to, I think we're working with HGAC right now to get some of their address points, and that should close up some of the major gaps we have currently. But yeah, we should be able to reach that same level that we did last year. And we'll have those available later summer as well. And just for reference, we did get our NAD numbers back. And so we did have an increase in our accepted points. And so our accepted points were 98.8% this last year. And they were able to integrate over 11.5 million points into the NAD database. Quick update. So some of you might have noticed if you use any of our parcel services, we have actually elected to just move towards having parcel and address point web services for our most recent data sets. So if you were linking to like 2025 parcel web service, you'll now need to link to the what we call our most recent REST service for the parcel data sets. And you can find that link on any of the parcel data sets, but we got feedback from the community and this was kind of the preferred methodology moving forward. And so this way, if you integrate this parcel into any of your mapping projects or anything like that, you'll never have to go and update it again every year. So after we get the parcel data sets this upcoming summer, they will seamlessly integrate into the same service. So you won't have to go link to a new service or your links won't break. You can just always have the most recent and it'll just update on the back end every year. Another update, so city boundaries. The comptroller pushed out their last quarterly update on March 31st for this data set, and we updated it in early April. And so now the city boundary data set is being published with the Q2 updates. Seen any questions so far? And then a little bit about some of our historic imagery that we have coming down. So we're still working on creating mosaics and then also vector indexes for the 100,000 frames that we got geo-referenced over the past couple of years. This will equate to about 400 fully geospatial historic imagery collections. And we will be working on that probably the better half of this year, hoping to have all that integrated into our data hub and the data warehouse where you can access them in early 2027. We've also been working on consolidating some U.S. Army Corps collections that they donated to us. We've been trying to organize that and put it into collections because we got it kind of in a odd organizational format. So we've been working on that, and we kind of anticipate that those will all be fully integrated into the data warehouse as well by this fall sometime. And those are actually some really cool data sets, some very low altitude imagery of coastal areas. So it'll be a very valuable data set for the state. Any questions on StratMap? Yeah.
2 questions. One is, where can people find the newest LiDAR data?
So the newest LiDAR data can be found on our data hub, which is data.geographic.gov. And you can just type in the little, middle, and lower Brazos in the search bar, or the data sets are also ordered by acquisition date. So you can just scroll down to 2025 data sets and you'll see it there.
Second question. For address points that have been flagged by the NAD, is there any way that information can be returned back to the agencies providing that address data so they can improve their future submissions?
I believe so. I'm not sure if we get those flag records. We do. We get them. Okay. So yeah, that's something we can start working on. And I think that we've also been kind of looking at if there are additional ways that we can tweak our ETL process to, if we get, points that have null values or inaccurate values, if there's ways for us to just correct those issues before we submit them. But if you're interested in that, I'm assuming they're probably from a county or a 911 district, but yeah, we can look at, creating reports based on that, your submissions and what points fall where. So that's definitely something we can look into. Sure.
Another question.
Yeah.
Someone is asking on the status of the 2024 LiDAR from HGAC.
To my knowledge, there is no new update. I think last I heard it potentially late 26 is what I believe I was told. But yeah, it really just depends on the USGS. I think it's still going through their QC process and then the back and forth with the vendor on corrections.
We have some raised hands. One of them is Michelle Fisher.
Oh, okay.
So,
Michelle
Michelle,
might be able to answer that.
You can unmute yourself, I think, and speak.
Yes, hey, good afternoon, everybody. This one is moving through. We have provisional data for work units 1, 2, and 4 available for download from USGS. So basically, when a work unit makes it through the data validation, we release that data, but the project as a whole is where we're going to assess a vertical accuracy. So at this point, we just don't have that. Work unit 3 was accepted. It's just not published yet. That may be available for download in maybe a month. But again, that's provisional data. Final products and final data will come after vertical accuracy is assessed.
Michelle, can they get that through the National Map downloader?
Yes, you can get it through LiDAR Explorer. You can get it through Rocky Web. Can I post in here or just in the Q&A? I can post the links to all that.
Yeah, you can post it in the Q&A.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, and so likely we'll wait until we get the entire collection as it becomes available from the USGS. And then once we get that entire collection, we'll ingest it into the data hub and then push it out to the public on our side as well. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, with that, we'll move. Oh, yeah, get in touch. So if here's the StratMap team. So if you have any questions related to any of the types of data sets we talked about today or any of the areas that we work in, please, feel free to reach out. We're always here to help. We want to help. We want to help get more data for the state. Or if you just you have any questions about DIR contracts or anything like that related to the geospatial practices of the state, just let us know. We're here to help. With that, we'll move into our featured speaker. So please welcome Dr. Ning Lin, who's an economist of the Bureau of Economic Geology at University of Texas at Austin. Dr. Lin is an applied energy economist with almost 15 years of commercial experience across shell trading, coke industries, and Tenaska before joining the Bureau in 2019. And we also have Dr. Mariam Arzumanyan. Dr. Mariam Arzumanyan is an energy economist and postdoctoral fellow at the Bureau of Economic Geology at the University of Texas at Austin, where she contributes to the Compass Research Consortium. Her work focuses on infrastructure challenges associated with large-scale digital infrastructure, including AI data centers and other large load industries. So please welcome them for their presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So I just wanted to first saying that it's very nice to be here and to be invited for this event. We're very happy to be here. Yeah, so already had my introduction. I wanted to I actually have a little badge because we just have our event last week, so have a little badge in my name. I wanted to just give you guys a little bit of introduction of the Bureau of Economics Geology. That's where our institute, where we're from. So I don't know how many of you know about the Bureau. Yeah, so quite a few, right? We work with Texas Water Drilling Board folks a lot and a lot of agencies. So the Bureau of Economics Geology is one of the UT Austin's, actually one of the oldest. I think we are the oldest research institute. We are established in 1909. And we are also second largest research institute. We're part of the Jackson School of Geoscience. The Bureau of Economics Geology was, I think, is founded for doing the research on energy, environment, and economics, and really kind of serve the state of Texas of looking at recovery of resource and management of resource, which includes from energy resource of oil and gas, geothermal, as well as water, land, seismicity, and the list goes on and on. Like, so you guys see that I'm not a geologist, I'm an economist, so I'm working with a lot of geologists, doing this work. So that's a little bit of introduction of the Bureau.
Oh, okay. Yes, I think you got it. Oh, I think we just didn't click on it, so it should be good now.
So, so a little bit of a introduction about the Bureau, and then what is COMPAS? So a little bit, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, because the Bureau is also the Geological Survey of Texas. So we're part as a research institute, but part we're like, other agencies, we're a state agency as well. We're the Geological Survey. So I wanted to explain, we come here to talk about geospatial and data centers, which is data center is probably one of the hottest topics. So I wanted to give a little bit, background of first why we're doing this and what is the challenge. So for data centers, we start looking at this, as you can see, my background is in energy. When we look at data centers come to Texas, we look at them as large load. That's what ERCOT, the market of, classify them as anything greater than 75 megawatt. But, generally, I don't have a really strict line of the threshold, what is large load, like ERCOT does. But the point is, large load is basically load entity. So someone that demand power, and they need a lot of energy, needs a lot of water, land, and they also deal with neighboring communities and have regulatory requirement. For us, those are large load. And if we think about that, Texas actually have always been open for business. We have a lot of large load. We have oil and gas. We have advanced manufacturing, semi-tech here, right? And still coming. And we have mining. We have critical mineral. We have many different type of, like energy. So any of the processing plants or the refineries, petrochemical, they're all large loads. So when we look at that and thinking about, for Texas right now, everybody knows that data center is coming as this magnitude of wave and speed. When we look at this, we say, wait a minute, this is something Texas has always dealt with. It's a different type, frankly, but it is large load. So, and the Bureau has worked with many industries, especially on energy and environmental side, with large load for decades. So that was kind of the idea that we realized that inside the Bureau as a research institute, we had a lot of experience dealing with large load, at least the traditional type. And we feel that we have some, expertise and experience dealing with large load and their challenges. That's why we put the consortium called COMPAS. So this is a consortium we launched, basically just focusing, pulling everything we know in-house together, but really focusing on interface with developers, with policymakers, with communities, with agencies, that when it comes to large load issues, right? And when we come to large load, one of the things we look at is, I remember the first conversation I had with Public Utility of Texas Commissioner Jackson. She said, this is great, you guys are doing a data center because everybody's talking about it. But don't forget, everybody, all the large load, they all share the same electric grid, they all share the land, they share the water. So the idea of looking at all large load together in a holistic way is very important, because we're not just focusing on data center coming our way, but we have to make sure all our other large loads will have the proper access. So because of that, we started doing this work earlier last year, and I have my colleagues here. They're really the start of the show because they're the GIS experts and doing the modeling. And where our objective is really looking at holistically to understand how do these developments have to trade off of different things on power, water, land, and community and permitting, right? All different stuff. Of course, we come here today, we're going to present to you mainly our geospatial part of the work. So we have a very multidisciplinary team. We have people from, economics like myself and Marian here, but we also have Edna sitting back. She's our GIS expert. And we have people that, spend their career on water and geology and many other things, and engineering as well. So that's kind of why we're here in Compass, but let me just spend a little bit of time talking about data center. Everybody's talking about it, but I think it's important to understand why it's coming and where we are. So the first thing, today I don't have that slide. I wanted to just talk to you about this. When we think about data centers, by the way, data center is not a new concept. It's just not just popped up yesterday. Data center has been around for decades, right? The first generation of data center, that's what we call the basement servers. Those are the ones in the closet or even at a large house. I have one actually in my house because my husband works in the sector. So we have a server closet, which is, it's just server closet. Those is era one. Those are the ones the power density is very small. It's a few kilowatt per rack of server. And then we go into cloud. That's where we start to use the word cloud, where we start to upload our photos, our emails, our files. That started really back into the 2010 or so. And then that really accelerated when COVID happened, when everybody started working from home. So all the files are on premise going to the cloud. That's where actually all the hyperscaler today they really start building these huge hyperscaler factories. And these are the place actually store a lot of these files and everybody is using to the cloud. The cloud is not here, but it's physically somewhere, right? So it's a hyperscaler factories. And by that time, the power density of using these servers start to increase. Okay. And then a couple of years ago, when OpenAI, released the ChatGPT, that's where it really kind of marks the new era when AI came. That's the AI data center. So that's kind of the era 3. What's the difference of that is, first of all, is AI data center requires a lot of computing power. When they have a lot of computing power, there's really 2 different types of data center you probably hear. One type is called the training center. Those are the ones you probably hear of the gigawatt factories. The reason why is they're kind of like a complex brain. They're connected together inside, but they can also locate it further away. Why they need to do it? Because they need huge amount of power as well as land to build these facilities. In order to do that, it's hard to do it near the urban center. Trust me, a lot of them, because of the job and the employment and skilled labor, they want to be closer, but it's harder. That's why you see the rural communities like in Texas, in West Texas, as well as northern Louisiana. Right now, there's one of the big one. Why they have those huge ones? Because they're building likely it's an AI training center. Those are the ones they can be further away from the city, but they're really doing the model training. And those are the ones they have, power density per rack start from, like I told you in era 1, is a couple of kilowatt. Now it's going to hundreds of kilowatt. We are now hearing NVIDIA saying that they're aiming for 1 megawatt. You're hearing 1,000 kilowatt of power rack. So we're talking about inside the chip of the power density, right? So that is one type. There's another type called AI inferencing. Those are the ones is also AI data center, but those are the ones likely it's going to be closer. For example, in Round Rock, there are 9 projects. There's 2 or 3 get built already, right? Those are smaller AI data centers, but those are the ones for inferencing. What is inferencing? When you're playing a VR game, you're doing the Netflix, or you're asking questions for cloud, it has to happen really fast. Those are data going to be stored very close to the urban centers. And a lot of the inferencing data centers, they prefer, and they have to, because their business model, they have to be close to the device we're using it. Okay, but because of that, they're also a smaller type of data center. So you're kind of thinking, so those are 2 different types. But these data centers, they require a lot of power on the chip level. And because of that, it's racking up in total together of the data center size is scaling. And this is why I show you this slide, of in US together right now. If you look at the map, Virginia, of course, is up there as one that has most of the data centers, but Texas is really catching up. Texas has, if you look at this bar chart, Virginia for the right now in service and under construction data center, which is green and yellow, Virginia is number one, but Texas is really catching up. And if you see, I have a very, very blurred and light color of purple. I did it on purpose because that is pipeline. What is coming? And for those that understand ERCOT, nobody can tell you how much is coming. So I use a very light color, say that is estimates. But the point is Texas has more data center in pipeline than any other states right now. So the picture is very clear that Texas, of course, because we have abundant service, we have very good market-based, electricity market and many of business-friendly permitting process. So it's welcoming a lot of opportunities. But at the same time, this is a challenge to our system and to our community and to everybody. Surely it's because of the speed and the scale. I always say it is not because suddenly we don't know how to handle ERCOT and every agency, talking about water, TxGIO, everybody, we talk to all of them. The thing is, it's just number of the application, how fast they're coming. It's really stress on the system. It's not because our agency are not made for doing it. We're all doing fine in the past, but in the past, the supply and demand kind of in sync with each other. But suddenly when you have many data centers show up and they all submit application, they all wants to do it in 18 to 24 months. While your power plants were built, I was in the business 3 to 5 years, and right now our interconnection queue is 4 to 7 years. So that is a stress, right? So because our focus mainly, we started with Texas. Of course, it's a national issue and a challenge. It's really global, right? And it's really important for United States to, to stay very ahead of the data security and the AI race. But we really focus our work and start with Texas because we know Texas best. So this is actually a QR code, which is a white paper we published actually last year. That was my, I think my team pulled everything together. We basically look at it and say, what is the current status of data center in Texas? So this is a very first white paper out there that looking at data center in Texas, but looking into power, environmental, community, every aspect. And so I call this our first term of homework, right? So we put this out there because we need to do our homework. This is a map from that study that we look at the background that is fiber optic routes. And then the blue dots are existing data centers and announced, which is yellow. Of course, since then, there's going to be more popping out. But one thing is really interesting, first of all, is there are over 400 plus dots of the blue dots on the map. And you will look at it and say, wait a minute, I don't see that many. And it doesn't look like that many. It's because they're clustering. Remember, I was talking about a lot of the data center originally, especially in the hyperscaler, for cloud as well as edge data center, they're very close to urban area. That's why they're all around the Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and the Houston area. But we also see is the stars. Look at the stars of the announcement. These are the gigawatt data center, like the Amarillo one, there's El Paso. These are the ones that are larger. The newest one, Microsoft announced this 2.5 gigawatt Microsoft pickup data center with Chevron. So we look at these large ones. Those are the ones I was talking about. They're more, because they have to go for a scale, they're going for more rural area. And that is really going to kind of the deep of the, what we call energy producing region of Texas, which is in the West Texas part of the Permian Basin. So I wanted to kind of leave you with, a little bit of how we're approaching this issue, because I talked about, the wave coming, how do we do it? I wanted to leave you with 2 slides to explain it, and then I can turn it over to Marian to talk about the geospatial. One of the things we found is Texas is facing a generational opportunity, but also challenge, right? It's a huge headache for some, but it also is an opportunity. So, but how do we do it? One of the things what happens is when we see all the load coming, one thing is right now, as I tell you, for ERCOT, there is over 410 gigawatt of application. that is multiple times what the system right now can actually offer. Right, so you have a huge line, and what the issue is, what we call like a phantom load, like this picture of the iceberg. Most of them, the data center come, they will announce that they're going to do this, or they're going to file an interconnection to the queue. But the issue is we can't tell which one is real, which one is the ones actually going to build, which one is a good character for our neighbors, which one actually did the homework. Because of the capital investment drive, there are many of them that even a farmer, even a rancher, they can find a land, and people know this, they're flipping land, say, hey, I look at the transmission line, I'm close by, I can sell this land to AWS. And they file a interconnection queue. So there are many of these speculative, what we call loads are there, and that is causing a lot of noises. So what our approach is, instead of saying how much is a load, like I said, nobody knows what is a load. But what we're trying to do is say, instead of doing that, we look at the deliverability of the project. What does that mean? That means if a project announced, we look at our geospatial data and our research to try to give a holistic picture of the project. We look through, their GIS data, their local regulatory context, community, and, from water, land, to understand, is this project actually real? Are they serious? And we think that's a much more feasible approach to tell the story, which project actually is real and coming. And what we're trying to do with this is saying, look, they're coming to a lot of our community and they're our, policymaker. What we want is a fair and transparent process. We want to get to a yes or fast no. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Don't bother too much of the community because it doesn't work. Or it's a fast yes, right? Because they did all the good work. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So with that, Compass, what we did is we take a system approach. We look at many different systems: water system, power system, permitting, finance, on-site generation, community. We look at all of them together. And I have a list of the publication I have on the side. These are the publications support this system. We have first geospatial suitability. So I'll let Marian talk and tell you more about what we did there. And besides that, we also do permitting and timeline. We work with all the agencies, and we actually recently published a white paper on this because we think that Texas permitting process is not easy. So we actually talked to all the agencies, put it together as a white paper for everybody to consume. And this paper is applicable for data center, but also for other large load and power generation in many cases. And also we have a very strong hydrology team. So we work on water resources, and we work with Water Development Board, Texas Water Development Board team very closely. And we also look into on-site generation. The last one is community. Because we're a geological survey, we actually got a lot of incoming requests from different cities, as well as communities when they need help in educating their community of how to deal with large load. So we actually provide them knowledge and information, and we work with the cities on projects like assess environmental impacts, economics impact tax. What we're trying to do help the city is make them feel that they have the enabling knowledge to make a good negotiation, whether it's yes or no, right? Without just have to depending on the hyperscaler coming with their slides and package. Maybe the community wants to have another institute and independent source of knowledge. So anyway, so that's my opening, and I will let Marian to continue to talk about geospatial.
Hi everyone, I am Melia Marzumanian. I'm going to present the work today that we did on the data center site suitability analysis. All the maps that you are going to see here are done by our GIS specialist, Edna. She's in the back. And so we started this work in August of 2024, I would say late 2024. And we were trying to understand what factors are historically determining where data centers are being built, and how can we using the geospatial data to make data-driven decisions. So we looked at the different criteria across energy, infrastructure, labor, land availability, and different exposure to hazards to understand like what of these, which of these factors are going to affect the data center site suitability. And our results showed that initially that energy access, infrastructure, and workforce are the most influential drivers of the past selection. However, like as we are moving and updating our data, we are seeing new development and new greenfield developments in particular in more West Texas and resource abundant parts of Texas. And we are seeing a little bit switch in our siting patterns. And this is helping us to look into the data more forward-looking perspective and more adapt to the data that we are currently seeing updated. So how does how do data center board looks at the site selection? So in terms of workflow, they usually do market screening, then they are looking into site selection where they are looking into a couple of pro-geographical areas and they are narrowing down like from very large number of potential locations to a small set of candidate regions. And then they move to do site due diligence, in which case they are looking at the parcel specific data. And in this case, like from site selection, the question is, where should we build it? And the site due diligence part comes and says, can we actually build the data center here? And after the site due diligence, they usually, if they have the land prior or they can acquire the land and then design and permitting and then start the construction. So because this workflow here, we are looking at the criteria that are influencing the site selection. So this study operates at the statewide and regional scale. So this analysis cannot be done to assess whether site-specific feasibility is there or not, but we are looking at the criteria that historically influence site selection in terms of land, power, connectivity, policy, and other factors. So what are the broad criteria that we looked and some of their sub-criteria? The major criteria are the power, fiber or internet connectivity, the hazard exposure, land access, water, and economic policy. And some of the sub-criteria are for the power grid capacity and incoming generation, the closeness to transmission lines, electricity prices. For the internet connectivity, we see the fiber maps and telecommunication data. For hazards, there are a lot of hazards that Texas is prone to. So we had to pick and choose our hazards that we thought was relevant for data centers. We chose flood, cold waves, wildfire, tornado, and hurricanes. And we chose the land covered by geography, public water service, availability for water, and we included for the economics data. So far, we have employment data, but we are planning to also include in the future permitting, zoning, and community factors into the data. And I hear comments from the kid there. Yeah. He agrees with me. So. And site selection criteria and priorities are different across different data center types. So as you remember, Ning was mentioning that historically we see most of the data centers are enterprise data centers, which are the internal IT servers that are supposed to serve the organization. And for them, your goal was to have proximity to your organization, be very reliable, low risk. And then we move to co-location data centers, which are multi-tenant facilities, and their goal is to serve diverse set of customers. And edge data centers are distributed low latency computing centers that their needs is to be close to end users. And for them, the proximity to end user or proximity to demand centers are more priority than the others. And then we shift to hyperscale and cloud structures for which for them it's a rapid growth, they are massive structures, and for them site selection more access to power, landability, and for the AI and high performance computing centers, they require very high power density, and therefore for them it's more important to have access to power, cooling, visibility, and water constraints. So there is not one solution to all of these different data center types, but there is unifying framework that we are trying to understand how it works across all of this. And what we do is that we use this a model called site suitability. So in which case, this is called multi-criteria decision framework, in which that we have all these different factors or different criteria, and different users might have different preferences or different weights across them. So we use a machine learning model called random forest. We derive the weights based on the existing locations of the data centers. We learn the weights based on that, and then we use those weights in the suitability analysis to get the final map that we are going to have based on the conditions. So as I told you, we started this research since 2024. We have a publication. So this one is peer-reviewed and published in Sustainable Cities and Societies. Please feel free to read it. The idea for this work was we got the data, we collected special data, clean, pre-processed it. We applied the machine learning analysis, normalized the variables, set up the predictions. We used the multi-criteria decision analysis, got the weights. We implemented in our GIS, got the maps, and we received the scores by county, and then we performed sensitivity analysis and validations based on this one. So this one is already published work. What I'm going to show you now is what we have done updated since this work has published. So what we have applied is that we included a new feasibility study, which we called exclusion criteria. There are certain locations in Texas where they are not feasible to build data centers that we didn't exclude in the original draft. So now we have excluded this. We are mapping land feasibility into the analysis. We added new and improved variables. So we are constantly trying to keep our variables up to date. And we are constantly trying to improve our methodology and adding granularity to our data. So the first one is our exclusion zone that we analysis. So we excluded the areas that are airports and runways, federal lands, infrastructure such as natural gas and oil pipelines, highways, railroads, and all the bodies of water or high elevation areas and state parks. You cannot build a data center in a state park. Hopefully nobody tries, but so for the natural gas, oil pipelines and highways, so this is a little bit tricky because ideally you want your data center to be close to roads and highways and natural gas pipelines, but you don't want to be on top of them because it will not make them feasible. So we decide for this approach, we decide to do buffer analysis for 150 feet. So you are still close to them, but you are not on top of them. So in case there is going to be future maintenance or anything that will require work, it's not going to interfere with the operations. And so next, I'm going to show you all the layers that we have. Then I'm going to show you the suitability map that is the final map. So for the fiber optics, we care about not just the existence of the fiber optics, but also how far away are you from the fiber optics. So Edna here, she created these beautiful maps. I'm not going to give her credit for every single map, but every time you see a map, it's a thing that she gets the credit for it. Ideally, if I want to be very close to the fiber maps, because each mile we receive different numbers, but different people say different numbers. But on average, we hear that to bring 1 mile of high glass fiber map to your location is around $300,000. So you want to be as close as possible to your fiber maps. This number can vary. Don't quote me on that. So most of the Texas has good coverage. And this data is from Geotel, and we constantly update this data. I think this is the most updated data. For energy, we care about current and planned capacity. For the current capacity, we break down it between thermal, hydro, solar, wind, and storage. And we care about also what is the planned power that is going to be online in ERCOT in 2026. And this data has been updated in 2025. And for the high voltage transmission lines, we care about all the transmission lines that are in the state of Texas. And the right one, the right one for me is just the map of the transmission lines, and the left one is the shortest distance from the transmission lines that we can see in terms of miles. And the blue line is the ERCOT boundary that shows the transmission lines and cover. And for electricity prices, we have, since you cannot look a snapshot of the prices, they change every 15 minutes for the real-time market prices. So we have to look and create custom index based on average price, price volatility, and peak price exposure to have understanding of what is going to be suitability for in terms of energy prices for data centers. And moving to hazards, we included in this case using Federal Emergency Maintenance Area, FEMA data from 2024 for cold wave risk and for hurricanes and for tornado risks. And this data is their custom-made risk index rating. And for, we originally used flood risk indexing data from the FEMA as well, but we decided to have higher granularity data, and we moved from that map to our own existing floodplain data, which shows the data from Texas Water Development Board. And similarly, we moved from wildfire FEMA data to wildfire damage potential index data from Pyrologics. So this one has also higher granularity, and this one shows more higher resolution data. And for the census data, for the employment, we are using census data for the employment from the in-plan, the census from the data processing, hosting, and related services. And you can see that there is a huge disparity in terms of like number of employments in this sector in Texas. And for land cover, we are using USGS data, which has different classifications, over 12 classifications across state of Texas from 2020. And for the water, we are using public water supply service boundaries. So currently, this map is only for the distance based. So the blue areas are the ones that are within the public water service boundaries. The red ones are more than 7.6 miles away, and yellow ones are less than 7.5 miles away. And we are, in addition to this one, we are currently working with our water group to add also number of connections to this data, and also by the surface water versus groundwater, in addition to do additional breakdown for the water. And with that, I summarize. So all this data, all these maps that you see, meeting, but this meeting, I think it was a good amount of us since we are GIS meeting today. So we saw the data from energy, natural hazards, labor, infrastructure, land, and water. And the rankings are based on how favorable are the conditions and the source of the data. And with that, so what do we get from this data? So what we do with this data is that we look at the existing data center locations. So we initialize our random forest model based on the existing data center locations. We train our data to learn the patterns. We assess the performance using our 80% of the data, and we keep 20% of the data to validate our findings. We tune the parameters. If we are unhappy, we'll repeat the training process. And when we get the best performing model, we deploy it, and we receive our set of variables. So for this model, we received the following important scores that based on our analysis, we did normalize the weights, and we received that land cover and proximity to transmission lines are one of the biggest subsections. And if on average, the energy demand is still like highest weight in terms of suitability patterns. And what does this translate in terms of the map? So if we put all these layers together and all this data, this is our preliminary results. So the red areas are the least suitable. So the more red it is, the least suitable it is. And towards more blue areas are more suitable. So we normalize the data between 0 and 1. And so this is still unpublished result. So we are still like hoping to go into peer review process, and we are adding variables to this one and updating this data. But I think we are close enough to what will be published. So the black areas are exclusion zones, so that those are the areas where excluding from our list. And we see that majority of our suitability is still in the metropolitan areas of Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. But we are also seeing suitability moving across Panhandle and West Texas. And we are seeing also that there is much more suitability across the rest of Texas rather than just being focused on the metropolitan areas. So at this point, you are going to ask me, how does it differ from your previous results from 2024 to 2025? And I came prepared. I have side-by-side both maps. So in terms of like, obviously, this is normalized data, so this is not like the same weights. So it would, probably we should have the same kind of weights for one analysis, but this is, even though this is not like the same weights, they are still like from 0-1. However, one of the big pictures that you can see is that because now we are seeing way more announced data centers in the rest of Texas outside of metropolitan area, our suitability patterns are shifting drastically. We are seeing higher weights outside of the metropolitan areas. We are seeing more blue areas in West Texas and Panhandle, and we are seeing much more announced and development that is happening. Okay, if I ask questions now, or should I finish?
Yeah, we can do questions.
If does anyone have questions? Yes.
I have a question. What's the resolution of that final mapping product for suitability?
200 miles, I think. Is it?
No, I believe it is 500 by 500 meters.
Okay.
So first of all, great presentation. I wanted to find out how, when I talk about AI to a lot of folks, I have a lot of people who are really, just have a bad taste in their mouth about AI because of the amount of water that one of these units actually will consume. In Texas being a water state, my question is there truth to the fact that each data center just really wastes a lot of water? And I actually used AI to check this. So, but what I've learned is that newer technology of these new data centers being developed really focus on water, I guess, reuse sort of things. Do you know anything about that, or?
Yes, I do. Sorry. Okay. So in December, we published a white paper on water use for data centers in Texas. So we looked into different cooling technologies and benchmarked their water use patterns. And also we did an analysis of understanding water use. So for data centers, so there is two aspects of water. So there's a direct water use, which is like whatever is consumed on site. And there is indirect use, which is you need electricity to operate data center, and everything that is in electricity is considered towards indirect water. So we kind of get different estimates based on the different grid mixes and different potential number of forecast of like how many gigawatt will actually happen. Right. And there is, unfortunately, there is not a one number. And if anybody tells you one number, they are wrong. Right. And we have like huge variety that it can go anywhere from like 3 to 9% by 2040 in terms of state water use. In terms of real numbers, so real time, it depends on your grid mix, because during the day we have a lot of solar and wind, which are very low intensity on the water, and it's very hard to quantify it also what electron goes where. So I think that it's more important to do a big picture analysis.
Right.
And kind of refer to our work.
I'm just going to comment on that a little. So we talked to, so on the cooling technology, a lot of them, they worried about, like she said, there's indirect water use, but there's also direct water use. Direct water use is on premise, is on site, right? So that's the ones you guys probably hear a lot of cooling technology choices.
Right.
right? So I think Marion's paper talked about that. So there is, the primary loop and the secondary loop. Secondary loop is what you guys hear, closed loop cooling. You probably hear those terms, or immersion cooling, or, direct to the chip. That is actually a secondary loop. That is inside, pulling the heat away from the chip. Right. And then once you pull the heat away from the chip, it's not ended yet, because you still have the primary loop pulling the heat out, rejected outside of the facility. So you probably hear a lot about, oh, we're using closed loop, we don't use any water. That's not true either, because they're just saying that they're using on the chip technology is closed loop. But how they're going to reject the heat at the facility level, just like what she said, it depends.
Right.
It depends on where they are,
Right.
what type of design they want. They could use cooling tower, they could use more evaporate cooling, or they could use more, waterless. But usually if they use waterless, like a chiller, they will increase their power consumption. And then, you come back and say, yeah, so that's, to her point, is we hear a lot about this. And the reason why the data centers are using closed loop or direct to chip is because at the very beginning I was saying, because the power rack is consuming so much power, the chips and everything are so close together.
Right.
It's actually because they have to for AI.
Right.
Okay, for the efficiency of the cooling. But then when the data centers say, oh, we're all closed loop, the community really need to ask, what is your primary loop? How do you get the heat away from the facility itself?
Right.
Because that water footprint is different.
Right. Do the facilities have their own plants?
Some of them do. It really depends. Yeah, some of them, like, because the interconnection is so long, so they will have their own. So it's kind of, there's no kind of one way,
Right.
but the trend is, it's true, because it's AI, they're moving to a more closed loop.
Right.
But how the heat is rejected on the premise, right? That's where I always tell people, ask that question. So even they are all closed loop, they're not exactly the same.
Right.
Depends on how they get rid of the heat at the facility level.
Very good. Thank you.
I love a good site suitability analysis, so thank you for this presentation. When I've done them in the past, always the next question is, what are the economic factors? And I know you talked about the census and the ERCOT. I know there's some other data sets or more other things that you've tried to include or want to include that have a bit more of that economic value, especially for the stakeholders and the clients.
Actually, yes. So we just got our implant license back. So I was looking at the data, and there's so much data. So I think that one of the most immediate ones is that we are going to look at the population density data. We are going to add, so we need to add more text data and more data on different sectors of construction data, maybe more on those sectors. So in terms of ideas, we have a lot of data ideas, and we are thinking of adding a lot. The question is going to be the time. So we are hoping that we can do some of those data additions in the summer and publish some of the results in the fall. And the second part is going to be, which are going to be in our model, which variables are going to have the highest value and are going to be actually important to add into this model, and which variables are not going to be relevant and we should skip to them. Unfortunately, we can do that once we do the analysis and we see what's
Text data is important.
Yeah.
Text data, yeah, text data is probably next one.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all of your data sets and your layers and everything. It's really cool. And one of the maps you showed, there were hundreds of data centers that already exist. Is there any validity to the idea that a high density of data centers is not a good or feasible site location for a new data center?
Actually, we hear the other way around, is that if a location is good, then there's going to be a lot of data centers. Because if you have the access to land, there are the roads, there is fiber and everything, there's not just going to be one developer who's going to build there, there's going to be multiple who are going to build there. So I guess, is your question is at what point it becomes saturation point?
Yeah.
Is that, can I interpret it? I guess it depends on which criteria we are looking? Are we thinking of in terms of like energy? Because in Virginia, there is all this demand for data centers, but they run out of like generations to actually power the data centers. In Texas, I guess more constraint might be from the water side, maybe. There might be constraint on the community side. So it depends on the particular location and what sources, one of which criteria is going to become limiting criteria for your development. But I do believe that, yes, there might be saturation point for each of these locations.
So in terms of economic data, what about demographics? So for example, low income, maybe even like people that don't have those higher level skills to bring to the table, or y'all avoid, or are those weighted as lower suitability? Or is it one of those like, hey, if you build it, they will come, and then increasing demographics, gentrification, et cetera, by increasing data centers? What's the consideration on demographics?
Thank you for that question. We did not include the demographic as available. So in a way that for the operating data centers, they need specialized people in census data for the IT sector, for the data processing and related services. But for the construction data, they need electricians, plumbers, and all the other trade skills. And in some of the cases, we hear a lot of evidence that some of these hyperscalers are investing in the community, upskilling. They are opening more trade schools or even schools and stuff like that. We have not included that, unfortunately, but I think that's something
I would just comment on that.
Yes, ma'am.
We do not include on the geospatial. It's because we don't see the demographic as a driver for
Yes,
the building.
yes.
So,
Good.
right, because
That's
like
great.
we have seen building in Dallas, but we've also seen building outside El Paso. Right, so it seems that the income level of the community itself is not, but I wanted to add to this point because, Compass doesn't just do geospatial. So one of the other things we do is when we do community, we do work with low income communities because they have more questions. There could be an opportunity for economic growth for them. However, for a lot of their county and the city officials, their day job is something else, and they're doing this on volunteer basis, and they have no they will need help and support of how to think about to negotiate with this data center coming in and to earmark the tax revenue coming in for something truly meaningful. So I just wanted to say it's not in the geospatial work, but we are working with communities that we have some community or on the low income side. And they do, I think they're, all about that is about the knowledge to know what can be asked based on, their tax revenue base, as well as what the issues that align with the community.
Great. Thank you.
So I saw that y'all included for the hazard data cold wave, hurricane, tornado, hazards, and fire. Did y'all include heat or humidity? Because I feel like that would impact the efficiency and the ability to control these data centers and the economic feasibility of that.
Yes, we did not include those waves, those hazards. I think we got like some insignificant results in the past. We did there is also seismicity we included, then we removed because the results were significant. And I think that there is what else was there? There is more.
Yeah, there's definitely more hazards in the FEMA later, but I think we just didn't want to oversaturate the model with hazards. And I think we were talking about how maybe there's not a lot of temperature change in Texas. I can't remember why exactly.
I mean, there's a pretty big difference between Texas and West Texas when it comes to humidity and temperature.
Yes.
Because I feel like where it's more humid, it's going to have a higher specific energy in terms of how long it retains that heat and then transferring that heat. Because once it gets out of the primary and the secondary cooling, it's got to go somewhere, and that's usually going to be the atmosphere of the air.
Yeah, the energy efficiency probably.
Right, and if it's higher humidity, but out west, it's going to have lower humidity temperatures.
It seems that humidity is not an issue. They're going west. When we're talking to El Paso, we said it's a temperature is an issue. They said, nah, it was fine for El Paso. Because we were asking the question, but maybe it's the humidity. That's a good point. We'll look into it because they're, we thought it was temperature, but El Paso was like, no, it was fine with us. That's, but I think humidity might.
And does it impact the local, microclimates in terms of the energy released or heat released from these cooling?
I'm not in that subject, but I do know data center does produce. Depends on what type of turbine they use, if they have on-site. So they do have that. And many of the data centers trying to use that heat for something else if they can, but not all of them can. So you're right. It's a potential issue because it does have heat generated. So, yeah.
Somewhere between the Texas coast and El Paso, you'll find your happy medium.
Is there a prioritization? Are we out of time?
We're close and we get online questions. So one question that came in is, can I download the fiber optic GIS data?
That's a private data. I mean, you can download the map because all our maps are published already in the white paper. So you can download all these publicly available data maps, but you cannot download the underlying data because that's private data.
Yeah.
You have to download the map, georeference it, and hand it.
Yeah, you can digitize it. And then we have,
You can buy the data.
let's see.
Yes.
Yeah, Sandra Wolf has raised her hand. Sandra, you should be able to unmute. Oh, she lowered her hand.
Sorry.
Oh.
Okay, sorry about that. Actually, I love this mapping and the data that you're showing us, and we're having a bigger understanding of what's really going on. But my question is, do we have the mapping for like our aquifer recharge zones? Should we be cross-referencing to make sure that those recharge zones are like in sanctuaries so we do not cause any problems with our aquifers being able to recharge naturally, and those may not be good areas? Would we also be looking at possibly that those areas could be, I know there's been talk about having zonings for just agriculture or just wildlife or parks. Do we need to cross-reference to make sure that they're being in protection so we have enough water and we have good quality, clean water for Texas?
Okay, so I think that for the aquifer recharge, it's not a layer we have, but we are working with Texas Water Development Board colleagues and our water group. We're just having a discussion this morning with an engineering company looking into it. Because we propose that most of the data centers, when they look at water or get you to groundwater, they just look at drill a well, they just look at the flow rate. But we also discuss with them, say, well, you should look at what is the impact of the local area in the aquifer. So we are trying to communicate and lend our expertise to in this area. The data on the water is tricky. I'm not a water person, so for those working on water probably know. So we're working like what Marion showed is a public water service. Those are one of the layers, but we're adding more layers to learn more. Because this, and also your question about zoning, we have actually a layer of zoning map. I'm not sure if it's in this layer, but yeah, we have actually doing some work. So the one of the papers on this screen, which is on the permitting one, it actually talked quite a bit about the zoning process. And recently there are projects get turned down because of the rezoning request of data centers. So this is a very frequent come up topic of the cities come to us to ask the suggestions or advice about zoning. So it definitely is an issue. Like you said, should we, I think we look into land, different type of land, right? Coverage, we do look into that. But in terms of what land should be zoned for what, this is a city's decision. For us, we take a stand that we're very neutral. We don't advocate data centers, or we don't object. So we let the city decision themselves, but we definitely provide them the support they need.
Okay. Is that a quick one?
Yes.
Okay, Tracy, one more.
Just ballpark, and I know it depends on size and type, but how many people these data centers employ? About or less?
So depends on the size, right? So let's talk about big ones. So let's say something like the size 800 or 1 gigawatt, like the Abilene Crusoe site. These big ones, hundreds of people. I was saying in the ballpark of hundreds, not thousands when they finish.
Right.
But when they have construction,
Sure.
they can have thousands, 8,000 to 9,000 people on site. So it's a lot for the community, but once it's done, it's hundreds.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you guys very much for. So, we're going to move on to basically our what we call, or I always call roll call, but which is we'd like to hear from you guys. We'd like to hear what you guys have going on, any questions y'all may have, or any just basically anything. If you're new here, raise your hand, introduce yourself. But Miguel, are you raising your hand?
I'm new.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Have you heard about the new North American terrestrial reference frame of 2022 and how they're going to be implemented on the low distortion state plane coordinate system that we developed a few years ago? Is all the data going to be adjusted to that or only as it was?
Yeah.
What are your opinions on that?
So that's actually a really good question. We used to have a guy who worked with us named Miguel Pavon who always would answer stuff like that. The answer to that, the answer to that is we actually are putting it in our GIO report as a recommendation to start to capture our data in that way. But we also, this may be a good question for John, is we've also been looking at what ways and how accurate are the transformation algorithms to take you from what you currently have into the new coordinate system. So
I would ask Brig instead of me.
okay. No, so I mean, but it's based on that. I don't know that I actually need an answer about that. But it has to do with what are we able to do with the data that we currently have, and if it's not something that's consistently updated, how do we transform it, and what does that yield us? And the other idea would be what's the accuracy of those transformations. And so I know from the last, I don't know, I think we've been kind of talking about this for 5 years, that Esri had been working on those transformations and I've been kind of looking into that. I believe even the coordinate system itself didn't it used to have like 72 different zones, and now we're like down to 54 zones or something like that. So even the spec is moving.
Yeah.
So I get that. So if you have any thoughts to that.
It's a moving target right now. And the transformation is going to be very similar. The hard part is what your data is coming in.
Right.
If you've got anything within it. Most people, got anybody here who, most people took their recommendation and go with the World Mercator, and they're sort of stuck with that because it does not have a Z value. And that's where people's data will have to change, is for that Z value.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to see, especially with some of our larger acquisitions that we do, if we're going to do an acquisition that covers, 15 different zones, my question is, how does that data all line up together? Because even with, we recently did a Ralph Hall, and it's evenly split between the UTM 14 and UTM 15 zone. And while they're both in their data projections, there's still a little bit of a misalignment. Not only, horizontally, there might be a little bit Z value wise too. So, my question is if we have a project like that, that's 15 different zones, is there going to be misalignment at that joint? And is that better than just getting it in a UTM 14? That's the whole that can be projected to one coordinate system. And then people can take that and do the transformation themselves if they want it on a different side. So
I guess it can still be done in both UTM zones, 14 and 15, but incorporating the new reference data, both horizontally and vertically.
Yeah, and for that, for small projects like that, I would anticipate that we would use those smaller state plane zones. Because there'd probably be a better especially for like pre-impoundment data. I think going that route would probably be a better reference point for moving forward in the future.
It's lower distortions, but also smaller area.
Yeah, exactly.
So statewide acquisitions.
Yeah, so when we're collecting, 4 Huck 6s, we might not go that route. But if we're doing, a study on a river segment or, a lake pre-impoundment, then yeah, that would definitely be probably a route we would try to go with. So I think for now, it's going to be kind of pick and choose which scenario is the best as far as the acquisition side of things go.
Yeah. Good answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, thoughts? There's a few that people who've written in some things they would like to talk about. Chris Bardash, if you are on, you had mentioned that you were going to talk a little bit about what you've learned so far on map accessibility guidelines.
See if I can find him.
Hang on, Chris, we're looking for you.
Do not see.
Okay. So Chris is going to talk about that. So for those of you who don't know, and I'm still pretty green at this too, that they're, we are kind of on the hook from a geospatial standpoint, mapping and so forth. Yes.
I was gonna say, I'm Ari, I'm from TxGIO, the GIS team lead there. The DOJ just announced like this past week that they're extending, at least for larger entities like us, the deadline for compliance is next year.
Right.
So I don't know if that was.
So we
That is really exciting. That was the best news I heard all week.
Yeah, so we actually heard rumor of something similar to that. In fact, our agency, Morgan, correct me if I'm wrong on this, was actually going to look at filing an extension on the mapping side of things, because it's not as cut and dry as other things are. We have to do this kind of as a group. And the reality is we've been kind of working in silos. Every agency's kind of doing their own thing. They've been asked to do their own thing. We haven't had a chance to pull the agencies together and kind of figure this out. So from like a water development board standpoint, we actually had a thought to what we're going to do and how we're going to do things, but that doesn't necessarily align maybe with others. And so we were welcoming that extension, and if that one has already been provided, it gives us a little bit of time to go through it. But the idea here is obviously to try to make any published map or any application out there compliant with things like being visually impaired and making sure you're using the right color combinations and contrasting and that sort of thing. And so, and that, I think that's just the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more that kind of has to be done that we kind of need to be ready for, because it's going to come where we're going to need to start figuring how do you do things with somebody who's completely visually impaired and can't even see colors. Where you have the maps being able to read the data to them and those sorts of things. I know that ACC has looked into things like that, and it's just something we got to do. Is got a coordinator on staff that does something with accessibility, looks at accessibility issues, which I know we look at y'all a lot on what y'all are doing, so we can, work on that.
Back in 2018, I have a blind student, completely blind. He was from the Middle East.
Yeah.
His eyes were blue, but there was no pupil.
Right.
He couldn't see anything. And somehow, he gave me a letter saying, please accommodate his request.
Right.
You know how many requests I got over the semester?
Right.
None. He came with some kind of software that can read red polygon population X.
So just by moving his mouse, he can hear the map.
He will make a mental map of whatever is on the screen.
Exactly.
Just moving the mouse.
I actually think I've met that student or somebody very similar to him, because I saw that exact sort of thing as he was moving his mouse. It's just talking to him.
He never asked for an extension. He got an A at the end of the course. I was very impressed with him.
Yeah, it's amazing. So those are the things we're going to have to be figuring out in the very near future, I think. So Chris, I'm assuming, is not on. So let's go to, what did I do with my glasses? So Laura, is it Mitch? Does that sound familiar? Texas Parks and Wildlife, Texas Ecosystem Analytical Mapper. you're going to give us a little update on that? MIKSCH.
First name Lauren.
Laura.
I'll see you.
Maybe that's why they sent them in, so I can ask the question.
You said last name was Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch. MIKSCH.
See them on here.
Okay, so.
Yeah, if you're on, raise your hand so I can find you, but.
Parks and Wildlife Texas Ecosystem Analytical Mapper tool has been updated and released for use at lma.tpwd.texas.gov/team. We'll try to put that in the notes. Solani, is Solani on from Texas Demographic, about the Texas Demographic Conference?
Solani Rashku?
Yes.
Yeah, he is. Solani, you can unmute if you'd like to talk.
Yes, I wanted to inform about our upcoming TDC conference in May 20th and 21st. It's in Austin in Barbara Jordan Building. So our registration is open if anybody wants to sign in, would like to join us.
Solani, thank you. Yeah, if you haven't been to that conference, it's very, very good. I've been to the last couple of them, and they are very informative, and it kind of makes you realize just, and we're coming up on the census year too. So this is pretty exciting to kind of hear everything that's going on. I know Texas Water Board or TxGIO are going to be involved in the LUCA process, and so we're just kind of getting our arms around that. And this conference, I think a couple of years ago, or last year was held in the Dallas area. This time it's in Austin in this building, actually. So if you can make it, I would highly recommend signing up for it. So Solani, thank you very much for that info.
And sure. I put a link to the conference in the Q&A section.
Perfect. Perfect. Anybody else in the room have anything else they want to bring up? Stephanie.
I printed a QR code for our online people. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Long. I'm a professor at Austin Community College in the GIS department. This is for online attendees if they want to look up our document. This Friday, which was already mentioned, thank you for mentioning, we have a career fair. How many of you have hired a student from Austin Community College? Nice. Next time I want to see more hands. So our career fair happens every year, every spring. We host agencies like you to come in and have a booth and share your current job openings with the students at ACC and other colleges. In this QR code, you'll find a document that has the details, including the website for information on our career fair. And then this Saturday, we are having a drone demo day on our ACC Riverside campus. Professor Sean Moran and Professor Mike Ritter, who's in our geospatial engineering or land surveying departments, are going to be flying our drone and collecting imagery and other data sets. So we have a wing trial vertical takeoff and landing drone that will be demonstrating along with some of the surveying equipment. We'd love to see you out there this Saturday if you're available. And then near the end of the spring semester, we're going to have our student showcase. This is a symposium where our students will have posters, we'll have a map gallery, we'll have a reception. They'll be giving presentations on the projects that they've done this semester. And that's being hosted by Professor Sally Hall. And it's on May 15th on our Highland campus. And so if you scan the QR code, it has all the details, the website and everything for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate that. Anybody else in the room?
Yeah, I'll do. My name is Mike Long. I am the co-founder of Spatialty, which is a new consulting agency here in town. So I'm here to promote if anybody wants to talk to me about anything. We have over 40 years of experience in the geospatial industry. I have 20 years of experience in ArcGIS Enterprise Administration. In fact, I'm certified. I'm FME certified professional. So if you need help with that kind of stuff, just reach out, let me know.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Anybody online? Questions?
I'm the new manager of GIS for Lower Colorado River Authority. I'm new to Austin as well, so looking forward to working with all of you guys.
Very good. Are you going to come to our social afterwards?
I didn't know there was a social.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to announce that.
Oh, okay.
Also, now's the time.
Why do you think we're all here?
Yeah.
Social afterwards. I was going to see if Courtney was going to make it back in the room so she could talk about it. Okay. Real quick, and I don't want to put these individuals on the spot.
Yes, you do.
Blake. So Blake flew in. He and I had a conversation yesterday, had an amazing conversation. So he flew in. He's going to sit at this meeting. He's playing them. Maybe talk a little bit about yourself and.
Yeah, appreciate it, Richard. Everyone, my name is Blake Pearson. I got my GIS degree and kind of my early start in the career in the GIS world in the Southeast, but I am a native Texan. And so I work for Langen Engineering and our digital solutions group. We're GIS professional services. We're about 150 people strong, but I lead up our GIS delivery team for the state of Texas now. And so it's an honor to be back. You know, we want to be a part of the community. We specialize, or as your Gold business partner, we specialize in utility network migrations, cloud migrations. But where I spend a lot of my bread and butter is indoor GIS for facility and asset management, and a lot of school safety response indoor mapping too. So just happy to be here, happy to be a part of it. And thank you. Appreciate it.
And Brandon is our new.
They're one of our new
contracts.
DIR contractors, so very pleased to have you
Find them on our website, in the StratMap contracts page.
And Kelly, I'm going to ping you because Kelly also flew in for this meeting and he and I had a conversation this afternoon.
Yeah. Kelly Francis with Aero Graphics in Salt Lake City. We're a DIR vendor on the StratMap contract. We provide LiDAR and aerial imagery, historical imagery. Here with my associates Bailey and Mike Arviseth there in the corner. I had been a previous president with MAPS, which is the Photogrammetry and Aerial Mapping Association. So I know Richard from his work with NISJIC. So we're happy to be here and just wanted to check out all the good work you guys are doing here in Texas. Very impressive group of folks. So happy to be part.
Thank you very much for coming down. I'm gonna put Heather on the spot. Heather flew in too for this, so you can just wave your hat. I think people know you, but.
Hi, everyone. Heather Geyer with Blue. We collect aerial LiDAR imagery with imagery, all that jazz.
And she's a huge supporter of ours and comes down for these, and we just greatly appreciate your support.
Of course.
So thank you very much.
Love being here.
Anybody else?
Who's got the hand raised? I don't see any other questions.
We will move forward. We're actually right at the end anyway. Let me see if I can make this work. Okay, so this is just FYI for anybody who's interested in some of in the job openings. There they are. The Water Board, obviously, it has a GIS programmer, GIS project manager at Port of Houston, and also a GIS analyst available in Bastrop County. So if you know anybody who's looking, get them to take a look at this information, grab your camera, take a picture. And Courtney Rowe.
Hey.
Courtney Rowe just brought in her young son, who is the youngest GIS analyst ever had.
He's definitely part of the community, so feel free to say hi if you're not coming to the Mappy Hour, and then come socialize with me and Michelangelo and all of our friends that couldn't make it to the meeting here today. We love the opportunity to network with you all and have a social at Tapville Social, which is just about a block or so down the way, right on San Jacinto, right before you get to MLK. So right on the corner there. We put together this social for supporting women in geography and GIS, and our friends at the TxGIO and our friends at TxGIO. So TxGIO and SWIGIS, or SWIGIS, if you want to say, for supporting women in geography and GIS. Those two organizations are professional organizations in the Austin area. TxGIO is co-ed and looking to revitalize and bring more back to the community. So getting your input about what's valuable for you. So we're at the social, looking to listen, to hear back from you. Supporting women in geography and GIS are also looking for great leaders. So people that want to take charge of an event event even. So there's lots of different opportunities, earn those GISP points if you need them, and as well, just getting really more ingrained and involved in your community and making it just stronger, because I think we're better when we work together.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Very much, Courtney. Appreciate that. With that, I'm going to close it out if nobody has anything else. We can start the party. Quick one thing, community meeting. Our next community meeting is on July 22nd, just right after the Esri conference. And then, of course, the last day of the Texas GIS Forum on October 23rd. And then, of course, don't forget about the forum, October 19th through October 23rd. We really hope to see you there. And we only gave away one keynote. There's more coming, so be listening for that. With that, stay connected with us and use the QR code to sign up to learn about when these meetings are happening and anything else that's going on. Join us and follow us on X YouTube at Geographic Texas. Visit us online, geographictexas.gov, or email us at gio@twdb.texas.gov.
I did have a question. When can we expect the video for the forum?
For the video for the forum. Oh, I just walked up, got it installed. So no, we are looking to do one. So hopefully we'll do it by summertime. So we will see. If anybody has any good ideas, let us know. And thank you very much for coming. This is a great crowd. Please come back and join us.